One of the most anticipated and copied stories of all time, the Green Goblin history and reveal all starts here, but it takes a few issues to get there. Let's go over them. Issue 37. Now, Attack of Killer Robot issues never really entertain me as they all seem to follow the same game plan, i.e. the robot's invincible until you find that fatal flaw, pull a loose wire or upload a virus or whatever, and done's done. So my expectation were low going into this issue, but as always with these early issues, I was pleasantly surprised.
Living ever, teach you to forever.
My God, I hate you. Anyways, some bloke by the name of Professor Mendel Strom is getting out of jail. Now, here's all you need to know. Professor Strom worked with someone, I don't know who, maybe some random guy. Let's call him Orman Osborn for short, and he was betrayed by said partner, went to jail, was cellmates with Frederick Foswell, and has been plotting revenge for like the last 10 years he was in there.
Man likes to hold a grudge.
Sure does. Now Foswell hears he's getting out, and the reporter in him is like, there could be a story here. Pete overhears this at the Bugle and puts him on a watch list, noting that Jameson has yet another new secretary. Later at college, Pete catches up with Gwen. Gwen fires a shot by asking Pete if he's slamming it coming down to her level. Pete fires back. They trade barbs. Pete even gives the "you're gorgeous when you're angry."
Oh, I see.
What?
They're yelling at each other.
So?
Please, that's the first sign they're going to hook up. Don't you watch any teen dramas?
It's the 60s. They don't just hook up. There's like a whole courting thing that they have to do. Go roller skating, drink milkshakes out of the same glass with 2 different straws. Look, it's complicated, right? But before the hormones can even take over, Flash interrupts. Later, Spider-Man's out swinging and overcomes a commotion. Some alien blob thing has attacked a building, and after a brief fight, almost shows our Spidey up, but our kid is smart, figures out that it is actually a robot and rolls towards the flames to make it loosen itself up. As the police and fireys show up, the owner of the building, Norman Osborn, converses with his son Harry. It was Harry's dad who betrayed Strom and had him put in jail, and he knows it is he who sent the robot. One robot down, doesn't bother Strom. He already has his second one planned. It looks like a cheap version of that Asgardian robot thing than what is that destroyer thing, because it has a face blast, but Spider-Man has already checked in with Foswell and knows where the professor is hiding out, and he places a spider tracer on the new robot. He follows it to Norman Osborn's office. Norman dodges surprisingly well for a mere human, but Spidey is here to rescue. The robot shoots. Spidey dodges. He hurls some machine at it. The robot blocks, firing back. Spidey dodges again, and while his back is turned, Norman Osborn, the man who he is trying to protect, clocks him one in the back.
What? What a jerk. This makes no sense.
Norman escapes. Spidey chases the robot back to Strom, giving it a heave-ho like Hulk did to Loki in that one movie. Strom picks up the broken robot head to use it as a laser beam, and we cut to a different angle. A rifle pointing through the window, aimed at Strom. Spider-Man pushes the professor out of the way and climbs up the window, but despite it being several stories high, there is no sign of the perp, no ladder or anything to say how he got that high. Back on the ground, Strom has had a heart attack and died, supposedly. The only final tidbit worth noting is that Norman Osborn later, after running into Jameson at some fancy-schmancy club, he returns home, wiping down his rifle. Spider-Man almost ruined his intervention. He must be disposed of. Issue 38. Just a guy named Joe. This issue is an interesting concept and is also Steve Ditko's very last issue as the artist for Amazing Spider-Man. Let's see how it plays out. Joe Smith wants to be a boxer, but sucks. So he wants to be a wrestler, but he sucks at that as well. Joe's manager is like, well, you want to trash something? Let's get you in a monster suit and onto a movie screen. But while he's hamming it up on the screen destruction, a camera breaks, knocking over some chemicals, and Joe is both electrocuted and chemicalized at the same time.
What an overachiever.
At the Bugle, Jameson's got yet another new secretary, and Ned Leeds is back in town. Pete's like, yo Ned, what you doing with my girl Betty? And Ned's is like, yo Pete, what you doing with, wait, what? Turns out Betty didn't go to the West Coast with Ned Leeds.
Please, we are so over her.
Well, Pete isn't, and he kind of gets in a petty argument with Ned. Ned admits that he never really liked Pete, so it's kind of answers that question about whether his over nice comments were meant to be condescending or not. Not the greatest mystery solved, but hey, it will help me sleep at night. Anyway, we cut back to Joe, and he's got stars dancing around in front of his eyes, like actual stars, not movie stars, and he's lifting up cars and just all around being a menace, like a big baby that got drunk for the first time. Spidey turns up and they tussle, but just as it seems like things are getting down and dirty, Joe's manager whisks him away. Cut to Norman Osborn. He's wearing a disguise so he can pay money to a contractor to put a hit out on Spider-Man. This results in Spidey being attacked by random goons and henchmen, but it's a bit like, meh, he's already well past the stage of a few hitmen giving him trouble. They're more of a nuisance. Cut back to Joe. He's lying down because he's got a headache and he doesn't understand why he went all mental, but then he starts seeing stars again and he gets super angry. Not like Hulk smash angry, but angry enough. He takes it out on all those that gave him crap in the boxing ring. Spidey just happens to turn up. Seriously, way too much coincidence on this part, but the two trade blows, and after Spidey serving him up a knuckle sandwich on a plate, Joe has his senses knocked back into him and is all like, okay, cool, didn't mean it, everything is alright. That night on the news, word's out, Joe Smith fought Spider-Man to a standstill and received a 5-year TV deal out of it. Meanwhile, Pete's life still sucks. So this is an interesting issue, and I can see what it was trying to achieve through what I guess is trying to give a normal person a star in an issue, as if it's a role the reader could place themselves in, but I don't think it really pulls it off. Our relationship to Joe is based on his apparent failures in different avenues, and while you can empathise with him to a degree, it's not enough to sympathise with him to the point where we actually care about what happens to him. For all we know, he could have been a complete douchebag in his personal life. I suppose a bigger elephant in the room is Ditko's last issue. This really is the end of an era, and one I'll probably sum up in a separate video, but just totally going off the top of my head, I can't think of a bigger, more important series of comic books in history. Maybe arguing the inception of Superman or Batman may be up there in regards to influence, but I feel like Lee and Ditko's run really did change the comic book landscape that nothing else has before or since. This was a sole template for a single hero book moving forward. Art-wise, there's a lot to be said about the formation of Spidey and his place in this world. Ditko single-handedly invented some of his most unique poses, but more importantly, the way he moves, the way he swings across town, the way he fights is all set in stone in these issues, and we still see that today. Issue 39 and 40, double issues. Someone out there is going to hate me for combining these and running through them so quickly, but I think it calls for it. These issues are important for two reasons. First, it introduces us to the art style of John Romita Sr., but it also one of the most famous early storylines for the Green Goblin, so much that it was replayed out in both cartoon and movie forms. We start with the Green Goblin training and testing his weaponry, and despite the new artist, still has eyelashes and was still hiding his face. Meanwhile, Pete's gone to the doctor. He's got a cold, but the doctor tells him that he's still worried about evil Overlord May's recovery and that under no circumstances should she be shocked or excited in any way. So this absolutely is setting up what you think it is. Pete goes to college, the gang's all there, but we see a scene between Harry Osborn and his dad, and old Normie Osborn doesn't seem too impressed by his son. It gets Harry down, and Pete asks him what's wrong, and is all like, oh, so your dad doesn't like you? Well, guess what? My dad's dead. I'm an orphan, and then they got me a replacement dad, and I got him shot by a burglar. And Harry's like, yeah, alright, fair point. Insert a quick scene. The goons are still trying to kill Spidey because Norman Osborn put a hit out on him. All the while, the Green Goblin is watching, and he drops some gas over the fight that apparently does nothing in the moment. But we know that it did work, for GG's following, noting that he no longer triggers Spider-Man's spider sense. You know what? This kind of bugs me. The same as Craven's jungle juju. Number one, how did the villains know he has a spider sense? It's not like he goes around telling people about it. And number two, how do they even concoct such a serum? And three, why do they never use it again if it's so successful? And four, why do no villains currently just have that in their repertoire against Spider-Man?
Got it out of your system?
I guess so. but probably not. Next, Pete catches up with Ned and apologizes for his reaction the other day, but on his way home he gets accosted by the Green Goblin, who has been following him all day. And he knows Pete's secret. He is Spider-Man. GG smogs up Pete, forcing him to fight back in his civvies, but the Goblin was training for this, and having Pete on the back foot, presses with all his tricks in the book. Razor bat, zappity zap, pumpkin bomb, then smoke to knock him out. Pete gets tied up, and when he awakes, he's at the mercy of the Green Goblin. And as we finish the issue to go to the next one, this is when the story really starts to lose its credibility. The Green Goblin has Spider-Man tied up in his lab, and instead of, putting a pumpkin bomb in his mouth and saying sayonara, he's not only going to kill him, but reveals his own identity to him, because it doesn't matter, because Spider-Man will be dead soon anyway. Blah. It's one of those cliches for the time that just does not sit well with today's storytelling. Whether it did work back then, I'm not really sure, but it is sort of a cheap trick to get to the next stage. But Pete's like, hey, you have the same ginger nut cornrows that aren't cornrows, and Norman's like, wah, Harry, nah, I don't care. But it's the first sign that there's a conflict within Norman himself. The first implication of maybe an alter ego. So Normie's like, don't you dare say his name. And Pete's like, yeah, there's this guy college. His name's Harry Osborn. He's your son. Another trope, keeping the villain talking so to stall for time goes directly into another. Norman gives the history of how he became the Green Goblin. A typical businessman with no time for his son, stole Mendelstrom's research and put him in jail, created the serum himself. It exploded on him because it's the 60s. They never ever got to test the serums on themselves back then because everything exploded in their face beforehand. And then he goes back to crazy pants and became the Green Goblin. Oh, and evil Overlord May is now worried because Pete hasn't come home. Remember how she can't be shocked or, she will die? Well, all Pete can think about is what will happen when his identity is revealed. All this time, Pete's been rubbing his wrists to escape the rope that bound him. And hey, just as GG finishes his story time and is going to find a way to dramatically kill him, he jumps out of his seat and is like, yeah, Spidey time, biatches. The Goblin is like, pumpkin bomb. Spidey's like web net block. GG is like laser finger blast. Spidey is like dodge roll. Goblin is like afterburner. Spidey is like wah. The fight continues, but this time Spider-Man was ready. Spider sense or no, though the Goblin pulls out all his bag of tricks. This time there's no match. The fight ends with Spider-Man kicks Granny into his own lab equipment. Norman's getting an electrochemical charge from whatever he was making there, knocking him out and setting the building on fire. Spider-Man pulls him out of the fire, but what's this? Oh wait, is it? Yes it is. It's another BS cliche trope of the time. Old Normie has amnesia and can't even remember anything about the Green Goblin, despite waking up in the Green Goblin costume. Finally, after everything, Pete makes it home. Oh no, the doctor is there. Aunt May had a spell because she was so shocked about Peter's whereabouts. Geez, Pete, how could you be so inconsiderate? As I said, this is quite an important arc for Spider-Man. It's a classic tale retold in movie and cartoon format, and while the underlying story holds up, I just feel that the execution doesn't quite hold up as well. My first issue is with the Norman reveal. Having only just been introduced, his reveal as the Green Goblin doesn't really have much weight. The secret of the Green Goblin mystery ID was such a fun and slow burn. I would have liked to see Norman introduced as Harry's dad and have a little bit more of a relationship with Peter as it does in the movie. Without that relationship, it kind of takes the oomph out of the big reveal. As an audience, we don't care it's Norman Osborn. I mean, who is that guy anyway? I mean, we all know him because we all know the story, but my second issue is obviously with some of the heavy-handed comic book tropes of the era, and as I said to death in these read-throughs, coming from a modern perspective, they are really on the nose. Things like Pete keeping Norman talking while he unveils his plan and history, not killing Spider-Man right away so he can make it dramatic, Norman being the first to discover Pete's ID but then losing his memory, thereby reducing any consequences, is considered cheesy for a reason. It reduced the impact of the story and it takes all the wind out of the hero's victory. I really enjoyed Romita's artwork and the fight scenes with the Goblin. I think where Romita shines for me though was in the colouring. The Goblin feels menacing, a little bit more goblin-y in a comic book type of way, but in a good way if that makes sense. But as a downside, he does feel a little less menacing and conniving despite the first sign of Norman being crazy pants with an alternate persona. Hey, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this approach, please like and subscribe for more videos. And remember, if you're interested in reading the full story, the easiest way is to sign up to Marvel Unlimited at marvel.com/unlimited. I need to breathe.